He's angry, not just frustrated on the radio angry. The kind of angry that makes a driver start thinking about life beyond Papaya. After Singapore, Oscar Piastri didn't just lose track position to Lando Norris. He lost something deeper. Trust. And once trust slips in a title fight, everything else, strategy, team orders, even career plans, comes into play. If you're hearing whispers that Piastri could actually walk away from McLaren in the next cycle, you're not crazy. That's how explosive this has become. Let's rewind to the race that lit the fuse. Singapore should have been a coronation night for McLaren. Back-to-back Constructors titles, 6 races still to go. Instead, lap 1 turned into a referendum on team politics. Norris, starting P5, threw the car down the inside after clipping Max Verstappen, and the recoil fired him into Piastri's side. The move got a pass from the stewards. McLaren called it hard racing. Piastri called it something else over the radio. Not very team-like. He was running P3 on merit, qualifying ahead and making a clean start. After the touch, Norris surged to P3. Piastri dropped to P4, and the championship gap shrank. That single exchange wasn't fatal, but it crystallized a season-long question. When the margins are microscopic, is the playing field inside McLaren truly level? Because Singapore didn't happen in a vacuum. In Hungary, strategy divergence handed Norris a one-stop route to victory, while Piastri was left on a 2-stop that the team believed would be dominant. It wasn't. You can say that was an honest misread, and the team insists it was. The result is what the drivers feel. Then came Monza, where a slow stop for Norris and an unusual stop sequence saw Piastri instructed to give the place back. Again, explainable on paper, combustible in practice. Each event on its own is survivable. Together, they draw a pattern Piastri can't ignore in a title run. So what did McLaren do in Singapore's aftermath? Publicly, Andrea Stella and Zak Brown doubled down on the let them race philosophy and promised a cool, analytical review on Monday. No mid-race swap, no team order restitution. Message received. The rules aren't changing just because it got hot. That's fair in theory. It's gasoline on a rivalry in practice. Even neutral voices like Martin Brundle said the ground rules between the two had just shifted for the rest of the season. When veterans start talking like that, it means we've crossed from incident to inflection point. Here's where the story becomes bigger than 2025 points. Piastri's manager is Mark Webber, the same Mark Webber who lived a decade of Red Bull success while carrying the label number 2. Remember Silverstone 2010, when Red Bull took the only new front wing from Webber and bolted it onto Sebastian Vettel's car. Webber won anyway and keyed the radio. Not bad for a number 2 driver. Then 2013 Malaysia, Multi-21. The order Vettel ignored, passing Webber against the pit wall and detonating trust that never truly recovered. Webber's career is a case study in how tiny inequities metastasize into permanent rifts. If anyone can smell the early signs of in-house tilt, it's him. Now, this doesn't mean McLaren are scheming to crown Norris. The modern working operation is arguably the most balanced race team on Sundays. Quick stops, clean calls, relentless development. They've earned these titles, but the perception of fairness is as valuable as fairness itself. Ask any driver. The moment you feel the calls are 51-49 against you, you start driving with anger in your mirrors instead of clarity in your visor. That's what Singapore revealed in Piastri's voice. Not entitlement, but expectation. He was the lead McLaren on the grid and into turn 1. In his mind, that status should carry weight when contact happens within the family. This is also where the results matter. Context. McLaren have been the car of the year. On raw pace over a season, they've outdeveloped everyone and earned the Constructors with 6 races to spare. Norris has been superb. Knife-edge qualifying, relentless race pace, more polished management than ever. Piastri has been everything people hoped he'd be and more. Fast without drama, intelligent tire life, clinical overtakes, championship-level composure. That's the paradox. Two number-one caliber drivers in a team that insists it doesn't do hierarchies. It's glorious when the gaps are wide. It's combustible when they're not. The other strand weaving through all this? The rumor mill about 2027, a Swiss paper, Blick, says Ferrari are tracking Piastri as a potential cornerstone for the first fully post-2026 learning season, with Brazil's Gabriel Bortoleto also on the long list. Read that however you like, leverage or legitimate courtship. But it lands differently after Singapore. Drivers build runways years in advance. Contracts can be bought out, and Ferrari, for all their chaos, carry a gravitational pull that never dies. If they think one of their current seats opens after 2026, they'll call the best under 27 in the world. Right now, that shortlist starts with Piastri, and yet, don't mistake smoke for fire. Piastri has a deal through at least 2026, widely reported to extend to 2028. He chose McLaren for reasons that still hold. The car's upward curve, Stella's steady hand, a culture that, until Singapore, felt like a refuge from politics. If McLaren navigate the next few weekends cleanly, consistent internal rules, obvious fairness, zero grey, the temperature drops. Win the title with integrity, and the off-season becomes a parade, not a post-mortem. Teams don't lose drivers because of one corner. They lose them because of an accumulation of corners that all point the same way. Quick pit lane stop. If you're into this kind of deep dive F1 storytelling, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, is McLaren handling this right? Or has the pendulum swung toward Norris? Your takes shape what we dig into next. Back to the fight. From here to Abu Dhabi, every lap between Norris and Piastri is a live political event. Watch the pit sequences. Who gets the offset? Who's protected from the undercut? Who's told to hold? Who's allowed to under or overcut? Watch the starts. How much space is afforded in turn 1 when it's Papaya versus Papaya? Watch the language. Team first is the mantra, but fairness has to be seen as well as done. McLaren know this, which is why they promised Oscar a detailed Monday morning review, not for public theater, but to restore the invisible currency that wins titles, belief that your side of the garage has your back. Now, about Webber. The value of his presence isn't just management and media cover. It's institutional memory. He knows how small slights become state policy if they're left alone. At Red Bull, once the perception of Vettel favoritism took hold, every part decision, each radio message, each strategy branch was interpreted through that lens. Webber still scored huge results, but the story had already hardened. He'll be fighting like mad privately to ensure Piastri doesn't wear a number 2 shadow he hasn't earned. And here's the twist. The best outcome for Oscar might be that McLaren's internal review is brutal, public-facing in its clarity, and closes the book. When teams are vague, conspiracies breed. When teams are precise, this is what happened, this is what changes. Drivers can breathe again. So, could Piastri really leave? The honest answer is that he'd be reckless to not keep options open. Ferrari need a spearhead for their post-2026 resurrection. Audi are building an empire with cash and patience. Even Red Bull could be an unknown by then, depending on how their own succession plays out. But the path of least resistance to multiple titles is simple. Stay where the fastest car lives and where the rules are fair. If McLaren nail both, Piastri's future is orange. If they don't, the paddock door marked 2027 will be ajar, and Maranello's red carpet is never far away. Here's my verdict. Oscar Piastri is not a victim. He's a champion in the making, stuck in the ugliest part of a beautiful problem. 2 elite drivers, 1 trophy. The injustice he feels isn't about 1 corner in Singapore. It's about the sum of margins when the calendar runs out. McLaren can fix this with transparency, with consistency, and with a visible commitment to equal treatment under fire. If they do, 2025 ends with a title and a team still intact. If they don't, the kid whose calm has unnerved Max Verstappen and Lando Norris all year could decide his legacy belongs somewhere that paints the car a different color. And if that day comes, remember the night in Singapore when a championship team let a championship trust slip and turned a title fight into a career question.